What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to First and Goal on YouTube. Please don't forget, subscribe if you are new, drop a like. It helps me out a lot in terms of the YouTube algorithm. I would appreciate that a lot, so please go ahead and do that if you are new. And today, we have some college football to talk about. The two semifinal games for the college football playoffs were on Friday, and today we're going to be reviewing them, giving some takeaways, breaking down each of those two matchups. So without further ado, let's start it off with Alabama and Notre Dame, the earlier of the two games. Alabama's offense, that's the big story throughout the entire season for them, and that continued in this matchup. That did not change, and we didn't expect it to going into this game. The offense just dominated all day, even though they had a season-low 31 points. It's incredible to say that that's how good their offense is. Mac Jones only had 5 incompletions all day, 25 for 30 on the day. That is mind-boggling. 297 yards, respectable for him. And then 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. I mean, for Jones, this is just another natural average day. That's how good he's been. That's how good this offense has been, and how explosive they are. This was just another run-of-the-mill, walk-in-the-park days for Alabama, and especially their offense. That's how dangerous they are, and I don't expect that to slow down going into this national championship game. It was a perfect day for Mac Jones, quite honestly, simply put. I mean, and he was going up against one of the best defenses in the FBS as well. I've talked about on the podcast, on the YouTube shows, how good I think this Notre Dame defensive unit is, but Mac Jones came out and balled on them. He didn't look fazed whatsoever. No pressure, hardly got any pressure on him. It's just, if you're a defense, you can't let this happen, and then B, as Mac Jones and the offense, it's incredible what they're able to do. But the real playmaker, just like every other week, was Devontae Smith. Smith racked in 130 yards and 3 touchdowns. And just like Mac Jones, this was another walk-in-the-park day for Smith. It was just another average game for him. He's had much better games than this. It's so crazy to me to say that because, 130 yards and 3 touchdowns in a college football playoff semifinal game is ridiculous. I keep saying that, this Alabama offense is so much on such a higher level than every other team and every other offense in the nation. And I keep saying it, but the words aren't enough to describe how elite this unit is. Because you have Mac Jones, Devontae Smith, who are probably the best players at their positions, or definitely, I'm not even going to say probably, who are definitely the best players at their positions in this 2020 NFL or college football season, and they're both Heisman finalists. And then you have Najee Harris, who's also been the best player at his position. You can basically hand him the Doak Walker Award already. He's definitely going to win that. And earlier in the year, he was a Heisman candidate as well. So, it just goes back to how good this Alabama team is at recruiting, right? It all starts there. Recruiting is everything in college football. And yes, you could argue the prestige, all of that stuff. But then, Ohio State and Clemson, they both have insane prestige. They have great history, great coaches, but they don't get players like this. Or, excuse me, they don't get players like this every single year and so consistently that they consistently have 2 or 3 Heisman candidates on their team. This team is so much better than everyone else. It's incredible. And it really is exemplified in this game. It's really, this game is a microcosm of their entire team. It's a microcosm of their entire season, because you look at Mac Jones went off. Insane game, yet it was still just pretty much an average game for him. Devontae Smith went off also, but just an average game for him. Najee Harris, third part of the big 3, but still one of the best players in the country and the best player at his position. Limited usage, only 15 carries, but 125 yards. Extremely efficient on his carries, 8.3 yards per carry. I mean, great day statistically and great day on the field, but an average day for him. And when you're talking about the stats and the way that they played, all of those days were just middle of the road for these guys. I mean, it's over. If these guys can have elite games against Ohio State, if they can go back and forth with them, if their defense can step up in that national championship game, that is going to be tough. Because they showed in this game that Alabama can score and play fantastic football against an elite defense. Now, shifting gears to the other side, Notre Dame, and specifically Notre Dame's offense. I said that this offense, wouldn't be able to go pace for pace, go score for score with the Alabama Crimson Tide. And surprise, surprise, to no one's surprise, they couldn't. They didn't. I mean, they only scored 14 points on the game, only 7 points in each half, and one of those touchdowns was a garbage time touchdown that didn't even matter at that point. So, it doesn't really, it counts, but it didn't affect the game whatsoever. So, it is what it is. The front 7 players for Alabama, like Christian Harris, Will Anderson, Christian Barmore, all of those guys had fantastic games, but they had fantastic games stopping the run. And that is what you have to do when you go up against Notre Dame. Kyron Williams only had 64 rushing yards. Ian Book only had 55 rushing yards. In total, Notre Dame had 140 total rushing yards. And, yeah, that might be a lot for a normal team, but Notre Dame is not a normal team. They are a team and an offense that thrives off of the running game. But not only do they thrive off of it, that's how their offense works. Their offense works because they can run the ball and because they keep the defense honest by running the ball, and then eventually they make some plays. Ian Book has under 20 passing touchdowns this season, I believe. That's off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure he finished with under 20 passing touchdowns this season. Okay? And they are in the playoffs, so clearly it's the running game. Kyron Williams, just a sophomore, and he's having a fantastic year. He got shut down. Ian Book, as a runner, has 500 total, or a little bit over 500 rushing yards this season, and he only had 55 total. So what's got to give? Something's got to give, and clearly it did, because they were not able to score points. They were not able to move the ball downfield, not able to get first downs. However you want to put it, they weren't hitting. It was not a successful day for Notre Dame's offense, not a successful day for Notre Dame's defense, and that is and when you think about it, that's a continuity. That is 100% a continuity between the ACC championship game that they got beat up against Clemson, and also it's a continuity since 1998. What happened in 1998? Well, you ask. In 1998. That was the first BCS, first time with the BCS championship format for college football. And since 1998, Notre Dame is 0-7. Yeah, that is correct. 0-7 in BCS championship or BCS bowl games and New Year's 6 bowl games. 0-7. And they've lost all of those games by 14 or more points. So clearly they can't go toe-to-toe with the best. Clearly they haven't been able to go toe-to-toe with the best for the last 22 years. Okay? And then we also saw in the press conference, this doesn't have much to do with the overall game. I think I made my point about that, but I got to talk about Brian Kelly for a second, because Brian Kelly, he's kind of had, I've been praising Notre Dame this year. I've said they were really good. I don't think they've really been that next level up to Alabama and Clemson standard, but I've always thought they were really good. We got to talk about Brian Kelly, because in the press conference post-game, he said he's always had, this season, he's had a little bit of a weird attitude, like I don't want to say obnoxious, because it's not obnoxious, but a little bit, it seems like he's taken the us against the world thing a little bit too far, and that mentality a little bit too far this season, and it's kind of turned into a little bit of aggressiveness and a little bit too defensive. And we saw that in this post-game press conference. He said, this year was a successful season. You look at I'm just paraphrasing here, but he said this year's been a successful season. You look at Alabama's scores throughout the entire season, and it shouldn't be a surprise. They're a great team. But he also went on to say how, it doesn't matter if the media and everyone else is happy with how this season turned out for everyone, and if it doesn't meet up to everyone else's standards. And he kept on saying how he doesn't need to prove anything to anyone else. Well, honestly, I disagree. I don't think it's about just the media and everyone else and the fans and other players around the league. It's about him and his team proving to everyone else and proving to themselves that they can compete with elite teams, because they are constantly put in that group with elite teams. And Brian Kelly, the way he came off, he came off as competent. He shouldn't be competent. He just lost a playoff game. They got their butts handed to them. He shouldn't be competent. He shouldn't be satisfied. He does need to prove that his program and Notre Dame isn't just some bottom dweller team that doesn't really deserve to be in the playoffs in the future, because he hasn't showed that yet. Notre Dame has not showed that yet. So I don't really understand that. It was a little bit of a weird moment. But now Alabama, they've gone back to the national championship after missing out on the playoffs last season, with a chance to avenge that season, that poor season by their standards, 11-2. But they have the opportunity to go 13-0 on the season here, going up against the winner of Ohio State versus Clemson. And the winner, of course, was Ohio State, in large part due to that Ohio State offense. I was right on a couple things in this game, but in my preview, but I was wrong in most of them, including my game prediction. This one threw me for a loop for sure. But one of the big things that I did get right is Chris Olave. I said Chris Olave would probably have to have a huge day for Ohio State to win, and he did. 6 receptions, 162 yards, and 2 touchdowns on that entire game. And he had 2 really big deep ball catches. Great route on that to just get behind the defense. That's exactly what he did there. And just great catches. Very good concentration on the play by Chris Olave. And Olave, those 2 deep ball catches both went for touchdowns. So you take that away, 49. That is 35. And that's only a touchdown away from Clemson winning that game, because they scored 28 total in this game. So Olave, huge day. And also, got to remember, he made a mistake on the last play of the Ohio State-Clemson game last season, and that was the reason that they lost, the reason for the interception. So it's good for him to avenge his avenge that feeling and get that out of his system. Now, he was one of the biggest factors in the reason that they are get an opportunity to go to the national championship and play Alabama. But we cannot forget about one other guy on that offense, or 2 other guys, because still got 2 other guys to get to. First of all, Trey Sermon. What a massive player he's been. He's really broken onto the scene in the last 2 games, specifically over 500 yards in those 2 games. That is, he has the most rushing yards in any 2-game stretch by any Ohio State running back in history, and that's some pretty good company. J.K. Dobbins, Ezekiel Elliott, Eddie George. A lot of really good players in there, and Trey Sermon has that little clip to under his name. He was a transfer from Oklahoma. He struggled to get his footing in the beginning, but broken onto the scene. 193 yards in this game, 6.2 yards per carry. This is maybe the best 2 consecutive games I've ever seen from an offensive skill position player. He just bowls through people. Got a great combination of power and speed as a runner. Elusive, slippery, through tackles. Very good. But the big guy we got to talk about, Justin Fields. He was the big playmaker. He got popped early by James Skalski. That right in the ribs. He looked like he could have had broken ribs on that play. It was a helmet to ribs kind of situation right there. But then he came right back in after being out 1 play, threw a very nice, kind of a lofty pass to Chris Olave. Or not Chris Olave. I'm not sure. I don't think it was Chris Olave. But lofty pass right in the edge of the corner of the touchdown. of the end zone for a touchdown, and he played great for the rest of the games. Went on to throw 4 total touchdowns, or 4 more touchdowns in that game. Had 6 overall, 6 passing. Really great deep balls in that game. Threw 1 to Jameson Williams, 2 to Chris Olave. Played fantastic. Threw some really accurate passes, especially in the end zone, to those tight ends, Jeremy Ruckert, Luke Farrell. Both caught very accurate passes from Fields. Excellent play. This is going to be huge for, I don't want to say his draft stock, but this game answered basically all the questions that NFL scouts had about Justin Fields, because he showed it all. He went through his progressions really well. Very nice deep ball. Very nice lob passes, and got some very good air under those balls. Very good touch. So, great game for him, reassuring a lot of NFL teams about his play. Now Clemson's offense, a team that wasn't very scary, or the offense that wasn't very scary, led by Trevor Lawrence, who is pretty much the consensus number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft at this point. His stats didn't look bad. He had 400 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception, but they really don't tell the story. He looked uncomfortable all day. He looked lethargic. He couldn't get any rhythm whatsoever throwing the ball. Just looked out of sync with his receivers. And a lot of that has to do with the pressure he was under all game. Tommy Togiai, Tyreek Smith, Jonathan Cooper, and Haskell Garrett, those 4 guys on the defensive line, were in his face the entire game. Got upfield fast and hit him a lot. Got in his face even. I mean, you don't even need to hit him to get him rattled, right? At this point, I mean, going past the second quarter, Justin Fields in that OSU offense already had 28, and Clemson only had 14 at that point. So Ohio State was already up double digits. So, you know, maybe you think that a little bit of, okay, I need to put my team on my back right now and play some hero ball. Maybe some of that crept into Trevor Lawrence's mind. And then the fantastic defensive line of the Buckeyes getting after him couldn't have helped him settle down and ease his mind, put his mind at ease. Couldn't have helped that. Definitely didn't help that at all. But regardless if it did, those guys got after him, especially Jonathan Cooper and Tommy Togiai. Those guys really went upfield, hit Trevor Lawrence, made him uncomfortable. Jonathan Cooper had 2 forced fumbles that game. Really just an outstanding performance. And another thing, you wonder if that's going to continue into the next Alabama game, because I think we can all agree that overall, as a player, Trevor Lawrence is a better quarterback than Mac Jones, regardless if Mac Jones is having the better season. So you would assume he'd be harder to get to mentally than Mac Jones would be. So if the OSU defense can continue this and still play just as good, you wonder if they're going to get to Mac Jones a little bit. And we haven't seen that all year. We haven't seen a rattled Mac Jones. We haven't seen a frustrated Mac Jones at all this year, because he's playing on Alabama, because he's been so good. So if OSU can stop him and get to him, this could be one heck of a matchup, back and forth, especially between that OSU defense and that and that Alabama offense. OSU just dominated that game in every phase of football. The defense, fantastic. Justin Fields had the best game of his career by far, and I still think Alabama overall is a different animal than Clemson. I think they're a better team, but, I mean, you have to take this performance into account. You have to understand how well they played, and you can only understand that by watching it. Even the score, even the 49 points, doesn't tell the whole story of how well and how in sync that Buckeyes team played together. I'm excited for this Alabama versus Ohio State matchup. It's going to be a fun one. There are going to be a lot of points scored on the board. I can't wait. That is coming up on January 11th, the next Monday. So next Monday, can't wait for that. That is going to be a heck of a game. Can't wait. Going to be so much fun. So I am actually going to be uploading a new video tomorrow. So back-to-back videos about head coaching candidates in the NFL, some of the top names and where they could be going. So stay tuned for that. And so you make sure you don't miss that by subscribing and pressing that notification bell. Also, go check out the podcast, First and Goal with Sam Levine. That is available on Google, iTunes, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcast. Also, go swing by the website, firstandgoalfootballtalk.com, for all articles that I post, and also that you can get access all the YouTube shows, the podcast, everything from there. And then to stay in the loop about everything that I post, whatever it is, go to the Twitter, First and Goal FB. That is the Twitter handle. So until next time, until tomorrow, I will see you later.